An easy fight. I was stunned. Me fight Fritz? No. That's right, Mick, Horst said, giving me his donkey-toothed smile. No more fighting little three cheese talls battles for him. Now he has to fight you. I thought Fritz would be freaking out, but he just nodded at me and climbed calmly into the ring. Then I realized why he was so unfazed. Horst had made a huge mistake. He thought we were going to beat each other senseless, but now we could take it easy on each other. We could put on a good show, each get in 1 or 2 light jabs, and then we'd be done. And Fritz wouldn't have to take a beating from one of the animals who smelled fresh blood. We tied on our boxing gloves and circled each other, pretending to look for openings. I nodded and smiled slightly at Fritz to let him know I understood. Bam! Fritz hit me with a hard right jab that snapped my head back and made me see bright spots in my eyes. The boys around us cheered and laughed. Watching the Irish Mick get beat up was second only to watching a little runt Fritz get beat up. This was high entertainment. Bop, bop! Fritz fired another right jab and followed it up with a left, just like I'd taught him. But this time instinct took over, and I blocked the shots with my gloves. "What are you doing?" I whispered. Fritz didn't answer. He came at me again, raining a hail of punches on me. Bop, 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 bop. He never punched hard enough to get through my defenses, but it wasn't for lack of trying. Fritz was throwing everything he had at me. Any idea that we were going to take it easy on each other was out the window, and soon everybody on the field was clustered around us, jeering us on. I kept my gloves up, defending against his attack without taking a swing, and the crowd booed me. "Just what I thought," Horst yelled. "The Mick's soft. Looks like he's not going to pass his boxing test." I heaved an exhausted sigh. They were going to make me hit Fritz, and it would be easy. He was already falling back on all the bad habits I'd tried to drill out of him. I waited until he dropped his gloves and reared his arm back for a long, slow hook, and I popped him once on the nose with a sharp left jab. I held back, not wanting to hurt him, but he was so small and so surprised he staggered back. The crowd roared. They were loving this. I gave Fritz a look that said, "Okay, cut it out," but he didn't get the message. He flew at me, even more furious now, gloves flailing. He had abandoned all the things I'd taught him by now and was just beating on me wildly. It was easy to duck away from, and the boys booed again when I didn't take another punch. Fritz grabbed me around the shoulders the way boxers sometimes do when they're tired, locking up my arms. I thought he was just taking a breather, but he'd been trying to get close to my ear. Over the jeers of the crowd, I heard him whisper, "We can't show weakness. You have to fight me for real." I pushed him off me and stared him down. He couldn't be serious. Why couldn't we just spar with each other for a few minutes and be done with it? Why did it have to be for real? Fritz came at me again, this time remembering some of what I taught him. He peppered my face with jabs, and I kept up my gloves, but then he got in a hard uppercut to the gut that I couldn't block in time. I doubled over in pain, and Fritz went for the top of my head. I put my hands up, trying to protect myself, but I was too winded. He was getting in too many good shots. The boys in the crowd were cheering him on and calling me every name you could think of, and a few more I'd never heard before. For 2 years, I had been the only Irish boy in my entire class at St. Paul's Grammar School in London. And did I mention the Irish hate the English, and vice versa? Every day at recess, I had been dragged behind the gymnasium and thrashed by some hulking lout of an English boy, while all the other boys hooted and hollered and laughed at me. And then, one day, I fought back. I was like Fritz at first, all desperate anger and flailing arms. I got myself a right proper beatdown that day, for a bully enjoys nothing more than when you try to fight back and fail miserably. But I got up, wiped off the blood, and fought back the next day, and the next, and every day I got a little better, learned a little something more, and one day I gave as good as I got, and the boys stopped dragging me behind the gym for my daily beating. because a bully hates nothing more than when you fight back and win. The constant pounding, the jeering, the familiar queasy feeling I had from the punch to my stomach, it was like being back in the schoolyard at St. Paul's taking another beating behind the gymnasium. And I didn't take beatings like that anymore. I met Fritz's jaw with a vicious uppercut, striking him with all the righteous strength and brutal rage of a boy being bullied. His head snapped, his eyes rolled back in his head, and he toppled forward, hitting the ground at my feet like a sack of potatoes.